I'd like to turn it over to my co-curator and today's moderator, host, Kate Towsey, coming to us from Sydney, Australia, where it's very early. So, hi.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Long time no talk.
So, all very exciting. We've got Molly in the house today, and I met Molly in Toronto earlier this year, and she came to a workshop I ran actually in Toronto, and we discovered that she was working on something that is of great interest to me, but I think of great interest to a lot of people in working in our industry, and that is how do you make sure that the research that you're doing actually has impact and that you're able to communicate what the research team is working on across the team. So Molly has been working at MailChimp for just under 2 years and started out as a UX research coordinator and focused really on recruitment efforts and kind of general ops stuff like streamlining procedures. And then again, this topic of today, maximizing the evangelization of UX research's impact and insight and impact across the company. She's now the Associate Research Operations Manager and focuses on 3 pillars: recruitment, everyone's favorite topic; knowledge management, everyone's other favorite topic; and the last favorite topic, UX research marketing and comms. Molly, it's so great to have you presenting today. I'm so keen to see what you've got. We're going to take questions during your talk, if that's okay. So everybody keep putting your questions through the Zoom chat room, and I'm going to keep an eye on them and collate them and hop in at points and hopefully ask them at the right time. So Molly, over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening to this chat all about multi-purpose communication and UX research marketing. So let me just jump in. Hello, I'm Molly, the Associate Research Operations Manager at MailChimp.
Molly, do we need to see your deck?
Oh,
we've lost it. I've lost it at least.
Let me just re-present it. 1 second.
Yeah, there you go.
I am so sorry.
Don't worry about it. I think it's because we broke out now. Here we go. There you go. It's perfect.
Okay, there's the title page, everyone, in case you
really want great.
So here, as I just mentioned, I am the Associate Research Operations Manager at MailChimp. I've been here a little under 2 years, and now I have been, as you mentioned, streamlining marketing, communication, recruitment, and knowledge management. But before I go into all of the research that in research, marketing, and communications that we're doing, I want to introduce you to the whole team. So we are a team of 13 UX researchers, 3 UX interns, 2 research managers, 1 senior research manager, and myself. So we are quite a large team, and our research has extensive breadth and depth. We have a lot to say and have been continually learning the best ways to say it all. I have to say, any UX research, marketing, and communication strategies that have happened have been created and implemented by this entire team. And I feel really lucky, spoiled, and excited and fortunate that I get to work with such inspiring, creative, and collaborative coworkers. So anything I talk about here, I learned from this entire group. So what we're going to talk about today, what I'd like to talk about with people jumping in at any point, I want this to be casual discussion, is covering what UX research marketing even is, why I think it's important, and why I hope you do too, and discussing how I approach getting started on creating marketing goals and creating marketing plans, and then give you a little bit of an inside view on how we are achieving our 2 high-level goals of making our company smarter and defining and demystifying UX research. Then I want to touch on multi-purpose communication, what that even is, and things to consider when considering multi-purpose communication. And just to keep things really fun and just a little something to take home with you, I want to give you a challenge regarding all of the things that I've talked about that we can talk about later. I love hearing from people in the operations community outside of this, so please feel free to talk to me afterwards. So let me jump in. As promised, we're going to talk about what UX research marketing even is. I had to ask myself this question a couple of times, and I decided to come up with my own definition. So here she is. UX research marketing is the strategy behind and implementation of intentional, effective promotion and communication of who UX research is and what UX research does. So I'm taking something here that is super intuitive, right? I did something or I am something and I want to talk about it. But sometimes that is easier said than done. So I want to take that intuition and put strategies around it to optimize that goal. Before I go into all the secrets of doing this effectively, I wanted to talk about what it might look like if we don't market and brand our UX research. So maybe everyone will create their own definition of who UX research is and what it does. Though we hold insights, knowledge, power, and impact, we might not know the best strategy to promote ourselves and prove value. If we haven't defined and branded ourselves, others will, and others could be wrong. If we are mysterious, then we might seem unapproachable, and collaboration with us might seem a little bit more strained. Your work within UX research, your hard work will be presented, but it might not go anywhere, or not as far as it could go because you haven't created an environment or know how to properly communicate that information. You struggle to prove your value even though it's been there all along. Other team members in your cross-functional team might not look to you for answers when they should because they don't know exactly what you do. Your point of view may not have the impact that it deserves. And in that same vein, you aren't able to effectively advocate for UX research in your own work. But it's not all sad. I want to talk about the perks of marketing what UX research does. When you market what UX research does, you're able to prove and show your value, have impact in the company, make your company smarter by your insights, create research advocates and customer advocates in your company, have a stronger voice, and build strong communication and collaboration skills within the company. When you market who UX research is well, you are able to define UX research on your own terms, create the brand and voice of the team, have influence throughout that company, become a known source of information and guidance, and strengthen relationships with other teams and departments. If you don't know what UX research is or does, you don't know their value and impact. But when you do know, you know what they bring to the table, and you know who to ask when needing that guidance or information. So before I move forward, I want to stop here briefly, because our UX research team has dealt with a lot of those pain points that I previously described. We were valued, of course, and people had a general idea of who we were, but we knew we could do better and that we deserved that. So once we realized this was important, we asked ourselves one question. I'm getting to it. Now what? So we asked ourselves this question. When you think of the impact of marketing that marketing might have on your team, what do you hope it can achieve? I sat down and asked myself these questions. I urge a lot of other people to do the same, whether it's Post-its, just a long list, and start to build these into higher level buckets that you could formulate into one larger goal or multiple larger goals. We built ours into two, but you could do 2, 3 overarching goals that you'd like to focus on. Now you're starting to build your marketing plan. So here are 2 goals that we came up with. Our first one was that we wanted to be a part of making our company smarter. We wanted to be the face of a lot of customer insights that could help inform the product and make our company the best that it can be. In that same vein, we wanted to define and demystify who we were once and for all. It's great to have a goal, but it can't be acted upon until you have built out some type of plan for each. So these are high level, tangible, a little bit abstract, but are a guiding force for achieving your ultimate goal. So we want to make the company smarter by exploring, experimenting, and continually optimizing the most impactful ways to evangelize our research. We also want to define and demystify UX research once and for all by defining, branding, and repeatedly promoting UX research. So I'm going to split these into 2 and talk about goal number 1, and then we'll jump into goal number 2. So making the company smarter. A good jumping off point here when you're wanting to optimize the way that you evangelize your research is to identify where you are currently. So understand how you are currently talking about your team's research and your insights. I did this. I listed out some ways that we like to spread our knowledge and our insights, and that's through a ton of Slack channels. You know, a lot of team meetings, all hands. We have a great newsletter, and these were some of the ways that we communicate our insights. But we had to ask ourselves, is this working well? Is this all we can be doing? So we went through a lot of these different mediums where we are communicating our insights, and we tried to find where the pain points were for these different areas, or where we could optimize and strategize around these areas of team meetings, Slack channels, and whatnot. So we first looked over and investigated how Slack is working for us as a way to share information and insights. We discovered that Slack channels are always overflowing with constant information, loaded with these really meaty decks, right? And it's hard to read through these multiple decks, remember all of the insights that you're collecting, and then find it again 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. And the saddest thing about that, the heartbreaking thing, is that valuable research becomes buried. So we looked at this and we decided to turn this into an opportunity. So what we did, and this is what I was talking to Kate about when I met with her in Canada, was we built these things called one-pagers. So they are basically, it's a slide, a Google slide, used to present an overall informative understanding of a research project. It's skimmable, it's easy to digest, and it hits all of the major points when you're wanting to talk about the insights you've just collected. It's a lightweight vehicle to send anywhere, email, through any Slack channel, and it's a really helpful way for people from all different areas of the company to understand what's been going on. So the templates for these docs provide instructions, you'll see down at the speaker notes, and just in this basic template, on how to build a one-pager, where to link out to more in-depth meaty decks, and where to spread these one-pagers via Slack. They're then stored in one singular repository available to anyone so that you can quickly access an organized collection of one-pagers. So more strategic ways, or more examples of strategic ways to make the company smarter, is we created a quarterly newsletter where we highlighted impactful research insights and researchers from the past quarter, which has been really engaging for a lot of people from different departments to learn more about what we're doing. And it also is a collection of different, it links out to a bunch of different documents that go in deeper on different projects that we cover in those newsletters. So MailChimp has an internal weekly radio show hosted by different employees in the company called Kemp Radio. Patty and Judd, who are superstars on our team, hosted an hour-long set where we as a team built out a playlist off of our usability checklist, which the research team developed for the company, the entire company, to use to check their work and started to consider usability in their own workflows. So to lead up to these our radio session, we plastered advertisements all over our co-located offices. We got a lot of posters, and we plastered these all over our co-located spaces, in the bathrooms, in the hallways, on doors, on windows, anywhere that we could put tape, we put them here. And this was really successful. This is just one quote from a coworker, but the reception was incredibly positive. We had high engagement during the radio set and had high volumes of traffic in all of our usability checklist documents. Another way to make the company smarter is by when we would engage with our internal blog posts, where we have an internal blog space for employees to talk about what they do. Naturally, this is the perfect spot for us to talk about all the great insights we're discovering. So we're actively participating in show and tell with senior leadership, where we meet with senior leadership alongside other teams to talk about our work. We keep these super casual and constantly find new ways to make them collaborative and unique. For example, another superstar on my team, Bethany, a researcher, created bingo cards during her presentation, with each bingo space being different keywords from her presentation. So because we are a competitive bunch, it kept all of us incredibly engaged on her talk so that we could get 4 in a row. And unfortunately, I did not win. We have a lot of future plans that we're really excited about, and I hope my team is not mad that I'm going to be showing these off before they happen, but we want to air a Halloween horror movie based off of insights that we've discovered, and also present some physical newsletters to have on everyone's desks in the morning about one of our quarterly newsletters, and trying to find new ways to gamify insights company-wide, like having a showcase or like a Jeopardy game at a company-wide all hands, just so that we can engage the company and make them smarter.
Molly, is this a good time to jump in?
Please.
Number one, your video is off as well. Okay, is that something you can put on?
I can turn it on.
We can see your face.
Here
There you go. Great. Cool. Thank you. So I've got 3 questions here. Let me start from the bottom. From David. I'm curious about the audience for KIMP Radio. Were they received well by all roles within the business? And was the attendance sustainable over time?
So we only did one radio session. So, I mean, for that one time that we have run it, it was successful, and we got a lot of, that's a great question. We got a lot of feedback from people in all across the company, whether it was from support or senior leadership. We found that this was a really, really highly engaging experiment that we are wanting to try again because it was so great.
Cool. Kind of makes me think of doing like a research radio.
I know.
And it's kind of a cool idea. Kelly, she asked, what advice, I assume this a pronoun there, what advice would she have for a team of 1? So what advice would you, Molly, have for a team of 1? Are there 2 or 3 things that you would recommend we concentrate on in terms of those things you've listed?
Yeah, a team of 1. So I wonder if this is the norm, but I'm very lucky that I have a research team that is really collaborative. And if you're a researcher of one, I think that it would be really beneficial to try to collaborate with maybe the analysts on your team or someone else that on your cross-functional team that you could sort of promote yourself as a storyline of promoting each other, where you talk a lot about a collaboration story, and then you talk about how your strengths are different from their strengths and how together they become like a really beautiful fruitful thing. But I think that you could get really creative. I think that, I don't know how many companies can do a KIMP radio, but I know that advertisements where you just put insights, you can just plaster insights as ads all over the company or all over the office space could be another way to just get your information out there.
Yeah, that's great. And you'll find on your team, I'm sure that some people are more creative than the others. Some people are kind of naturally more content people than others, and it's kind of tapping into those resources and leaning on marketing and everybody else in the organization, I guess. So Tabitha has a question. This one we might have to unwrap a little bit, so feel free to pipe up, Tabitha, if I don't get it right. Have people done UX research marketing within a transformation space or as part of a change management team?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. Have people done UX research marketing within a transformation or as part of a change management team? So that's a little confusing to me, and this is why Tabitha might have to give some context around that. Are you there, Tabitha?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Yeah.
Yeah, could you give some more context around your question for Molly?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering how UX research marketing works in the context of like a large project, and maybe you do or don't have this experience, like where there's like a change management team or a transformation team, because they kind of have similar goals. So I was just wondering if we work together or like, how.
We don't have that kind of team. So I don't know that I could accurately answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Let's do one more question. We'll move on, and then I'll get to the other questions later. Sharon asks, Molly, you mentioned your team is collaborative, and I'm interested to know how you are collaborative and what the team dynamic looks like.
Great question. So as you mentioned, Kate, earlier about how there are people on the team that have different strengths, and we are a very, I would say, a very tight-knit team where we meet quite often, and in the team meetings, this is one of my job roles, and a lot of people on the team are also very passionate about branding and marketing UX research because it is so mutually beneficial. And so when we do have a project we want to implement, I can't do it by myself. I could never do a newsletter or any of these things by myself. We just kind of open up who wants to help, who wants to volunteer, who wants to do these things. And we have designers on our team, people who are really strong in design, who are always willing to just say yes. And so we just kind of create these little like mini cohorts and just kind of hit the ground running that way. It really is, because I am a team of one on research operations and there are so many researchers, it is all hands on deck type of dynamic.
Cool. Great. I'm noting questions from everybody else, and we'll hop back to those later. So onwards.
Cool. Okay. I do love these questions. I'm reading them rolling in. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next goal about defining and demystifying UX research once and for all. So we wanted to find out, and we wanted to reorganize the way that we were defining, branding, and repeatedly promoting UX research. And the first way that we wanted to do that was by redefining who we were. We figured our weekly news or our monthly newsletters that I talked about might be the best platform to introduce our new definition. Our definition needed to represent the UX researchers and what they do. So we pulled in everyone on the team for this task. We took all of their definitions and from there built this definition, which right here is: we connect the dots, we help our fellow peeps make smart and strategic decisions by collecting insights directly from our users and prospects. We're most excited when we uncover why users do what they do by identifying their goals, needs, and behaviors so we can be the catalyst for action to build the best small business marketing platform out there. So we took all of these definitions from the UX researchers to self-define who we are, and we wanted this to be an elevator pitch, something anyone across the company could repeat back. We also wanted it to be something that could be understood by people who don't work at MailChimp, and I think we did a pretty good job. So we defined ourselves and sent it out into the world and continue to do so. Okay, shadowing a researcher. We invite and encourage folks from all across the company to shadow and participate in testing sessions we have going on. The best way for people across the company to learn who we are is to get them fully immersed into it. Tying back into the Camp Radio ads, we post those all throughout our co-located offices to engage people with our insights and become an active part of company culture. Team swag. Who doesn't love team swag? We created this little project, which I had the most fun with. A few of the researchers on the team helped with the design of creating iron-on patches that we then bought members-only jackets for and ironed those on. And we thought that this patch really did represent what UX research at MailChimp is to us. And so we put them on those jackets, and this was just a really fun way to bond together, which helped empower the team and helped us really continue to brand ourselves. We're not for sale. So we have stickers for UX research participation. When people around the company take active roles in research, helping synthesize or learning to moderate quick iterative testing, we give out stickers for each of the participation. So this was another way to quickly become part of conversations when we're not there. When any of our fellow teammates or their fellow teammates asks them about what the stickers are, they can say, I participated in UX research. It was amazing. You should go do it. It's awesome. Now, people are always super eager to earn these stickers. They all really want to collect them all. So I think this was a really fun activity for us to move through the company. And a ton more. I feel like all I've gotten to do is just talk about all the fun, cool things that I get to do at work, but it's important to note that these are really sincere, intentional, and strategic things that we've decided to do that just ended up becoming really super fun projects. So with everything that I do, I always want to consider multi-purpose communication. So multi-purpose communication really just means that not all information can or should be communicated identically across teams, departments, stakeholders, and/or the entire company. You might present insights or information about the same topic to multiple groups of people, but every presentation might not always have the same purpose. You just have to cater to that purpose and that audience. So considering your audience, it's what I've really tried to do, and I think that all of our UX researchers have tried to do, is experiment best practices to engage different audiences. So example is the company-wide information sharing might be more high level than when you're presenting to your directors, stakeholders, senior leadership, and your UX research team. When you are presenting to different teams, audience is captivated most when the information applies to them. How can I apply my insights to a project this other team is working on? How can I keep them engaged in what I'm talking about? Also considering why you are communicating this information to this group. Are you hoping for buy-in? Are you providing insights and updates? Are you just suggesting product changes or raising awareness? Are you hoping that this will result in some type of behavior? Each purpose might be presented differently rather than road showing the same deck over and over and over again. So in sum, marketing and communications within operations is really important, and I hope I've illustrated that. Though it's a strategic process that has the capacity to constantly change, it can be done. Not only that, you can have a lot of fun doing it. So I have a challenge. Consider how your team is marketed currently. What's one thing you might be excited to try now? Try that. And then tell me how it goes. I just want to thank all of the researchers who have helped me with this, the marketing and communications endeavors that we've done at MailChimp. But most importantly, I want to thank all of you.
Super amazing. We have a bunch of questions, and I have a bunch of questions too.
Yeah,
I wouldn't miss the opportunity. So a few of them were answered by someone from your team, but there was, Carol asked, was there a call to action on the posters or tagged onto the radio show a website? I think that question might have been answered, but why don't you go for it again anyway?
Yeah, so I don't know what the term for this is, but it's the thing where you put your phone up to it and scan it, and then it would send you to a document. And we also had links. I blurred them out, but there were links to documents and other usability checklists and ways to get involved in the Kemp Radio show.
Cool. And what platform was the Kemp Radio show run on? This is a question from Mark.
I actually don't know. If Judd's on, what was the platform? Or Patty? I know they're on here.
Hey, this is Judd. It's an internally run platform. I'm not quite sure what they use, but it's like locked down to our internal IPs.
Interesting. Well, I mean, there's loads of platforms out there, so I guess we'll just take a bit of research and a new vendor and more procurement. Yay! So another question from Carol. Did you set success metrics at the outset? How did you know what tactics work best, and did they translate the marketing into increased demand for research across the org?
I love this question because
I
love this question so much because I've asked this to other people in the research ops community. And this is something that our team is really starting to talk about, is we're starting to do the thing. Now, how do we measure the thing that we've been doing? And we, at the moment, it's been the fly by the seat of our pants, but we are starting to rein in and try to find and identify what those metrics would be. So for Kemp Radio, it was really easy for us to measure success because we were seeing the traffic, we were seeing who was attending or accessing and looking at those decks that we were guiding them towards. But I think another metric of success would be, if we do another one, is it going to be the same? Is it going to be better, the attendance? And so we're doing the thing, and now we're starting to quantify the success of those things. But I would love advice if any other people have that kind of information on how to measure the success of marketing and communication.
Yeah, I've just made a note. Actually, it would be a really great thing to have a session here on metrics and research ops, because I know it's a conversation a lot of us are having, and I know a lot of us are doing some really interesting work where I'm going, oh, we need to get to that point where we're really able to measure these things.
Yeah.
So let me have a look. We've got a question from Alison. Regards to show and tell, does MailChimp have certain sensitivities among higher level folks that make some topics non-touchable or difficult to have fun with? How do you handle publicizing research findings without causing unnecessary drama?
Well,
quote unquote.
Yeah, we show and tell is a very focused, or it's a very focused meeting. So it's only about 4 projects, and they're really, really casual, where the project doesn't even have to be done or complete. We're just going to be talking about what we're working on right now, what we want to show off to people, to senior leadership. We don't really have sensitivities about what we're talking about. So that hasn't really ever been an issue, but I can't say that that wouldn't maybe at some point be an issue, but I'm not really sure what type of sensitivity they meant.
I think it's interesting because we're also looking at, as an organization grows, as a team grows, there's certain things that you'll share within your own team and certain things you'll share without your team, and certain points at which you'll share certain things at certain levels. And even as the team grows, just having a communication strategy for that, how you share what you share across the organization is really, really needed as the team grows.
Yeah, and I think that there has to be some type of strategy around that. I think that we are really trying to be intentional about being proud of the work we're doing, and about saying the right thing at the right time to the right people. But I don't think that that's ever become a pain point of ours, where we've said something and it becomes an issue, or someone tells us not to say something because it would be an issue, because we're so intentional about being at the right place at the right time.
That's a good point. Steve asks, how do you know when it will be time to revisit these definitions and pitches? Because companies grow and change. So I guess it's, Steve, you might want to elaborate on that.
Oh, great. So I put a cracker in my mouth. You asked me to elaborate. I mean, just coming to an agreement about who we are and what we do and why it's important is a thing that represents a moment in time when you do that. I just wondered, were there thoughts about, let's revisit this and check in on this with some cadence, or I don't know, how do you know when you're sort of when you're living with an out-of-date definition of what you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we haven't set a cadence for when we would revisit that definition. We try to we send that definition out every quarter, because we do have new employees come into the company, and we want to make sure that they also are aware of that same definition. And I do read it every time I post it to make sure that it's an evergreen definition, at least for now. But I think that our marketing strategies will also evolve as we grow and shift and change. And so I think just trying to change fast with however we're moving is just going to have to be an intention. We can't really get married to the brand or the definition when that would just kind of hold us back. Between all 14 to 20 of us, we would probably be able to redefine it quite quickly. But that's a really good question. Do you have an idea of how you would do that?
Oh, what are you, some kind of research person throwing it back? No, I mean, I really like the way that you're describing it. Because you're living with it, I think that gives you just kind of said, you're checking yourself as you revisit it. So I think you are going to be the person, or, collectively, you are going to be the ones to flag when, wow, this doesn't feel right, or this feels like maybe it's shifted. So that's cool. Even if you don't have a deliberate cadence to check it, you have activities that are where you're touching it. I like that. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's a lovely statement here from Callie saying, this presentation encourages me to push past answering the why is research important to us question over and over. And I love that, because it is, I guess, I'm assuming that in doing this work, it must be reflective as well, because if anyone's like me, when I'm writing something, it's the way I'm also working out what I'm trying to say. And I know when I'm writing with my team, it's also us trying to work out what we say as a unit, as a team. And I'm wondering, whether you found that this process has made you question what is important to us?
Important to us as researchers? As
researchers, and what you share and what you're doing and how you impact has made you look inwards as well, and look at what you're doing. And
I think, well, the way that I've started to feel as we've moved forward through this marketing, through being more intentional about marketing and communicating, is that I feel more validated and that our research is important, because I can see that the researchers are getting more excited and are getting more empowered by being able to now have a platform to speak about what they're doing and how it's shifting the product, or maybe, so I feel like because we are talking about it, we are reminding the rest of the company how important it is.
Great. I think that is the end of questions. Oh no, there's one more here from Julia. Can you talk more about ads, posters throughout co-located offices? What content did these have, and how did you measure the response of people? Again, going back to that measurement and metrics side of things.
Yeah, so we have currently done the Kemp radio. There's not really a way for us to measure the success except for all of the Slack messages we get of people like screenshotting it, and those were really beneficial and helpful. And I think the next iteration that we'll want to do is just going to be customer quotes and insights, and just blatant insights that we are going to have throughout the company, in all of those same locations, just to gain traction and become part of, again, the company culture, just kind of integrate in. And to measure the success of that, I think would be a little difficult unless people are like taking them down to take home, but I don't know that people are going to be.
They might be stealing your jackets.
Yeah.
That would be your side of success, not one jacket left with the Belgium the research team. I was curious about, there's a ton of things I'm curious about, and I could talk to you for ages. But the one pages that you had and the idea of a library, a library is a massive thing to run on its own, and we've got one person working full time on what library looks like for us. And I was curious about how the community, again, anyone working in research ops will know that every single research ops element will bump against every other research ops element. And so how does library and marketing, how do those things cross over, if at all?
I think marketing, when it comes to the library, marketing is a part of it because we want to be seen as a research team that is where our findings are searchable. We're easy accessible. You can maybe even discover things independently where you don't need a researcher holding your hand to find those insights. So that's why we did that repository of the one-pagers, where it's a high level or like a really quick, easy to digest version of a library that I would not necessarily call a library, but I do think that library is a part of marketing because it's another form of our communication. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, have you gone? Has Molly disappeared? I think she might have vanished. I think the internet went funny and Molly is gone.
There, she's back.
Hopefully she's back. Is she there?
So
Molly, no problem.
Bad connection.
I think you're back. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And it goes back to the idea that I've been playing with a little bit and that we've spoken about, is that a full library might not be the necessary thing, at least initially, or ever. It might be that cataloging, where you're cataloging a page and that page gives the overview and person to speak to.
Exactly.
And so the library is still maintained within kind of human form, but you're pointing people in the right direction.
Yeah, and we're moving farther away from just Google folders, right? That is in someone's folder and we don't know who that is. And it's in a more, we're like slowly moving towards that solution.
Yeah, love it. So Carol had a great question. If you were able to get a special budget for these efforts, she'd be curious how you convince management to invest in you and your team for this. How would you convince management to give you money?
I'm sorry, wait, I got lost in the chat. Will you repeat that?
Sure. So in summary, how would you, what would be your elevator pitch? How would you convince management to give you money for a person to do this? I'm doing this at the moment, so I'm very curious in your answer too.
A person, you mean to hire a marketer?
Yeah, to hire a marketer comms person to work fully on this.
I think what I would have to do would be spend a lot more time measuring I would have to find a way to measure the success and measure the significance, quantify how this is an important thing. So I would start with, looking at the traffic in the decks that we're presenting and that we're marketing out, or the information that we're marketing out, and also documenting the amount of time that it's taking from your bandwidth and your workload to make a case for why you're doing two jobs in one body. But I do think that it really does boil down to identifying what those metrics are for success of marketing and communication.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think there's the way I'm looking at it as well is that there's a huge amount of work to do in my kind of ask, because it isn't asked currently on my list of headcount, is, you know, someone to do branding and marketing for our international research panel, to do the team branding, to run our events, both internal and external, our summits and things like that, to do the newsletters, to make sure our researchers are speaking at conferences, that we're sponsoring conferences. That's an enormous amount of work. It's a full-time job. So yeah, what I'm continuously fascinated by is seeing these very specialized roles starting to bloom within the research ops space, and the work you're doing in marketing is one of those things. Yeah. One or two more questions here, and then Lou and I wanted to move on to something just for the last 5 minutes, which I'll keep secret for now to build suspense over 2 minutes. Agent user, I don't know what your real name is, but is that repository searchable, and how is it cataloged? You could probably do a whole presentation on just that question.
Yeah, it's so we at the moment it's a little bit, it's we're still building it out. We kind of wanted the way that it's formulated to inform the way that we organize it. So now it's just it's sort of in a table of contents, because it's only been about 6 or 7 months since we started doing one-pagers, which is still a lot of research and a lot of one-pagers in there, but we're trying to see what is the best way to organize this information. Is it by date or like quarter? Is it by user issue or by product team? So we're trying to find the best way to organize it, but right now it's just a table of contents situation.
Yeah, great. It sounds like we're living parallel universes. Lou, I think we're done. Molly, thank you so much. It was fascinating. Great to have an insight into the world of research marketing at MailChimp. Lou, can I hand back over to you?
Yeah.
Grant.
Something that we've been working on and have launched, and we've let you know about it, but we wanted to bring it to the call, is the idea of having really interesting questions and are helping you answer them. In other words, to put it bluntly, we have made both Kate and her counterpart on the DesignOps side, Allison Rand, advice columnists. And we are going to take your questions and try to either have Kate answer them or we're going to see if she can find the answer from the community. And
as you can tell, I've got lots of smart friends like Molly.
Absolutely. So we will publish the answers on our the community's website. It'll be out there for anyone to benefit from, but we are limiting the ability to ask a question to members of this community. And Kate, I think you already have the first one that came in and you're starting to think about answering it. Do you want to air that question out?
I do. I'll need to quickly get it out, which won't take very long.
Okay.
I might just scan down my list of emails, which has grown far too big.
Beat you to it.
Maybe you can beat me to it. Here, I've got it.
Okay.
Great. I have it. So the question is, the business understands the value of establishing a research ops practice, but how do I help the business align on where we should start, prioritize our efforts, and protect it from scope creep? Really good question. And I actually know the person who sent this in, now that I look at it more carefully. So yeah, that's going to be a nice meaty one to answer, and I'll be getting busy on that early next week.
Does anybody want to help answer it? What do you think? You need help, Kate?
Oh, do I? Well, if anyone wants to, Steve says, when does Kate sleep? Well, I'm in Sydney, so I get to sleep during the nighttime. If anyone's got any opinion on that, I'd love to hear it. I think it would be beautiful if these advice columns were, let me phrase this in another way. I think if anyone knows the work that I've done right from the start, it's been less about what do I think and more about what do we think. And I think these advice columns would be really beautiful to keep that way. So where I've got no one else answering and my very smart friends around the world don't have answers, which would be incredibly surprising, it would be great to crowdsource and really for me to more be curating what do we think? What does everybody think about this? So you can tweet me at Kate Towsey, or what is another route, Lou?
Well, I've also put the URL, which is on the website anyway, but the direct URL for the form to submit questions.
Yeah.
And, you know, we would appreciate it. I mean, these calls are free, membership is free. We like to think we're giving some value here. One of the ways, if you kind of want to pay us back, is by giving us your questions, because the questions are really informative. I mean, you know, for me as someone in the business of producing a conference on this broad topic, just getting a sense of what people are interested in and what they're struggling with really is informative to me as a conference program. And, you know, I know as a curator and in her work in general, it's really helpful for Kate. And I think people like to hear what other people's questions are. So if you don't mind, post your questions. We'd really love to see them. They can be anonymous. You have that option of limiting the amount of information we associate with the question about you. So please do it. Steve, I'm not in prison. I'm just the office. No matter where I am, the office is ugly. It's just my curse. And I also just want to put in the correct URL for the conference. I think I put 2018 in earlier. In any case, I think that's it. We will be reconvening next month. Let me just get the date and the time and who we're going to have. We are going to have, I'm going to mispronounce it, Kate, but it's Sarit Girchis.
Yeah, Sarit Girchis.
On October 10th. What's Sarit going to cover?
So Sarit actually works in my team, and she is our research recruitment guru. She worked for Google for a couple of years doing research recruitment for them, and then I managed to steal her. And she runs our research recruitment desk, and she's going to share, I think it's called People Not Petri Dishes, or something along those lines. And it's around that you recruit, you can end up feeling like you're just recruiting participants and they're people, and she's really passionate about keeping that humanness in the recruiting process.
Well, we will email you as we have those details. We won't get the date wrong this time. I think we had a little bit of a typo when we announced this event on Monday. It wasn't happening last August, as you can figure out. But we will email you the correct time and date and the description, and we'll email you likely tomorrow with the recording from today, the chat transcript, and a link to Molly's presentation. Molly, thank you so much, and thank you, Kate, and thanks everyone for joining us today.
Yeah.